Hi, this is Reverend Goodman, and I just want to share with you a devotional that I had the opportunity to share this morning with the Fellowship of Christian Students at the middle school. It's based on a passage from Jeremiah chapter 1, beginning verses 4 through verse 9. And this is what it says. It says, "The word of the Lord came to me, saying." Now, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a prophet. And most of the prophets that you see in the Old Testament, when you read their books, very early in the book, there is a portion in which the call of the prophet is identified. The prophet explains how God spoke to him, what God said, what God wanted him to do. So here in chapter 1, verse 4, we have the word of the Lord coming to me, coming to Jeremiah, and saying to him, "Before I formed you in the womb, before I formed you in the womb. Before you were even born, before you were even in the womb, I formed you and I knew you." God knew him before he was even conceived. He says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I set you apart." Before he was even out of the womb, God had already determined what was going to be happening with the life of Jeremiah. And he said this then, God did. God says, "I appointed you before you were even born to be a prophet to the nations." Well, Jeremiah responds. And at this point, Jeremiah is a young man, probably the age of those middle schoolers that I spoke with this morning. And he said, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I do not know how to speak. I am too young." But then the Lord said back to him, "Do not say I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord." And then the Lord reached out his hand, Jeremiah says, and touched my mouth, and he said to me, "I have put my words in your mouth." These are the words of the Lord for the people of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Have you ever had a time in your life when you just said, "I can't do that"? I'm sure all of us have, and since I was relating this to a group of students, I suggested that maybe it was the time when the coach called on you to go in and to make that shot that was going to be the game winner or the game breaker. Maybe it was that time when a music teacher said, "You are going to have a recital this week. You're going to get to do a solo." "I can't do that," you said. Maybe it was the time when the teacher pointed out, "It's your turn to stand up today and give a book report on that book you were supposed to have read over the weekend." We have all had those times in our lives where we quite vocally say, "I can't do that. That's not something that I'm able to do." Sometimes we can't finish a devotional without the phone ringing, but I'm going to go on. We say, "I can't do that." We say, "I'm not equipped, that I'm not the one that should be here at this time doing what you're asking me to do." Sometimes, though, we need to remember that even though we don't think we can do it, God does think we can do it. God has knit us together in our mother's womb. God has known what our life would be like before we were ever born, and God has appointed us to do what God wants us to do. I pointed out to the children, I said, "You all are capable of doing something that I am not capable of doing. I cannot come into your school and go to the children in the hallway and talk to them about Jesus. But maybe God has called you to do that. Maybe God has called you to share the good news of what Jesus has done in your life so that someone else can experience him too." I can't come into the places that you work. I can't come into your homes and just boldly begin proclaiming the gospel, but you can. You can talk to your fellow workers. You can talk to your family members. You can talk to folks that I don't have access to, and you can share the good news of what Jesus has done. And that's what I encourage you to do. Don't get into the habit of saying, I can't do that. Get instead into the habit of saying, Lord, if that's what you want me to do, then give me the words. God bless, and I hope to see you in church this Sunday.